What's up, everyone? Today we got Mr. Tyler Graham. He's a homeschooling dad of six. He has 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood, which kind of helps dads reconnect with their kids, slow down in areas of their life. In today's conversation, we go over their homeschooling journey. He gives us a little tip about even just to stop at Chick-fil-A and the kind of the meaning it can have behind it. And we get into 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood. He gives us a great book recommendation. I really hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in there. All right, so we'll just jump right into it then, man. If you could just take a second just to give people a little bit of background about you, who you are, the 3 Mile Per Hour fatherhood,
Yeah,
also how you guys kind of fell into the homeschooling journey.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank y'all again for having me on. My name is Tyler Graham. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, with my wife Bree and our 6 kids. We've got 3 boys, 3 girls, ages 11 and a half down to 4. And we've been homeschooling since my oldest was in pre-K. So I think we're going into year 7, or we're in year 7 or 8 of homeschooling. And we'll dig more into that, I'm sure, kind of the variations and iterations that we've gone through over the years, how that has played out as we've learned a lot during that time. I work full time in healthcare technology, but also on the side run a brand called 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood, geared towards equipping, encouraging, and envisioning dads to slow down and be present with their kids in the midst of all that life brings, in the midst of fatherhood and family and homeschool, things like that. And yeah, excited to get to talk with y'all today to talk more about just our journey, what this has looked like, things that have helped us, things we've really struggled with and had to overcome. And yeah, excited for this combo.
Heck yeah. So how did you guys make that decision to homeschool? Was it something that you've thought about beforehand, or was it
Mhm.
something like a one-time incident that just said, hey, we're going to take this leap and try this out?
Yeah, so my wife and I have a bit of a unique background and story. Neither one of us were homeschooled. We were both public school here in Greenville, but we started dating when we were 14. And so we've been together for a really long time, dated all through high
Wow,
school,
dude.
college. And for some reason, it was just always one of the things that we wanted to do. It was always part of the vision that we had for our family. Always knew we wanted to have a lot of kids, and homeschool was always part of that equation for us. Um, I'd say that, like, the primary driving force for us was we are both Christians, so faith plays a big role for us in our homeschool process. And the thought of our kids being outside of our home for a significant portion of their young lives, 8, 10 hours a day, during these really formative years was just something that never felt right to us. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it was the right way for us to say we want to be able to take advantage of this time that we have with them to really raise them and equip them in the truth, the skills that we think are important in life, and not to miss out on those opportunities with them. So from the very get-go, like I said in the intro, we've homeschooled from the beginning. We've never done public school. Our homeschool has had different iterations. Like I said, with different co-ops. My wife actually started a co-op a few years ago, and that's where we're at primarily now.
Okay. That's actually kind of neat because sometimes it's what we've done a lot of these interviews, and sometimes it's like they send their first kid to school and then they
Yeah,
recognize, hey, this is not what we want. That's cool, you did it. Now, when it
yeah.
comes to your homeschooling journey, like I said, you're 7 years in now.
Hmm.
I gotta imagine that you've tried and failed. And one thing we like to say
Yeah,
is that's perfectly normal during the homeschooling
yeah.
journey. You know what I mean? Like you're not
Hmm.
going to find your rhythm, your routine, what works for you until you kind of fail on a couple of different things.
Yeah,
Do you have any stories or anything like that that happened with you guys?
yeah. There's been plenty of those. Like like you said, I think with anything in life, and homeschool it is no exception. It's not going to go perfectly from the get-go, right? It could be in the curriculum that you choose. It could be in the philosophy that you take on as kind of your personal educational philosophy for your home, for your family. It could be the rhythms that you have and when you do your school, where you do your school, things
Hmm.
like that. Especially if you've got multiple kids, and especially if you've got multiple kids, some of which are not of age yet to start schooling. We call our 4-year-old our school mascot because she's just like always, part of the action, but is not doing any formal schooling yet. So I think for us, one of the biggest things that I would say, and I would encourage families that are getting started in this process or they're early on and it's felt really bumpy and clunky, is like you said, David, like feel the freedom to experiment, feel the freedom to tweak things, to try new things. I think that's the beauty of homeschool is that you can really craft your day-to-day rhythms and activities and your philosophy in general around what works best for you, for your family, for your kids in your season of life. Right. So when we had, as I mentioned, our kids are very close to, we have a lot of kids very close together, 6 kids born within 7.5 years of each other. And so during those early years when our first kids were starting into like formal education in our home, like my wife is balancing the education with them, managing a lot of really young kids that are very demanding of her time. And like we had to just figure out how to make that work. And we had to be okay with things feeling bumpy. We had to be okay with things not being kind of that idyllic picture of homeschool that we thought we might have. And over the years, as the seasons have gone by, as our kids have grown, as we've had the opportunity to introduce new rhythms, as our kids have learned to read and can do things more independently, as they've found different topics or things that they really enjoy learning about, we've really had the chance to get to step into those things with them and give them the freedom to pursue learning in the way that best works for them and best works for our family. So all that to say, and that doesn't quite answer your original question, but I think a lot of the early failures were just trying to hold on to things too tightly, if that makes sense, trying to kind of grind things out because we think it's the way it should be, and not giving ourselves the permission or the grace to tweak and adjust when we realize that something's not working well.
No, most definitely. And mad respect to your wife, man. My mom,
Yeah, oh
she
yeah,
had me and my two siblings, and that was only
yeah,
three, and the house was chaotic.
yeah,
Man, it was chaotic.
yeah, yeah.
I can't
It's wild,
imagine what it's
man.
like for six, dude. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It's
Um,
nonstop in our house, that's for sure.
that's the way it's supposed to be, though, man. Because I know
Yeah,
I look back on my journey, and when I think about it, it's just so many good memories, dude. You're
oh
with your
yeah.
siblings nonstop. You got your
Hmm.
parents actually in your life. You're not separated from them. It's just it brings nothing but good memories for me. But you did
Yeah.
touch on something that I like, and you said giving yourself the grace.
Hmm.
That is something when people get started on this, I feel like they have, like you said, that picture of what our homeschooling is going to be. A lot of it's like we're going to sit down at this time, we're going to do our schoolwork, and then we're going to have a lunch break. But then they get going, and you realize as a homeschooling parent, you're wearing every single hat possible.
Hmm.
You got to be the mom, the dad, the cook, the clean, the teacher, and it's just
Yeah.
when you can accept that it's your journey and you're going to make it yours rather than trying to mimic someone else or what you think it
Hmm.
might be. I feel like that's when people really open up to finding success because they find out exactly what works for their family.
Hmm.
Now, we kind of touch on the 7 different like learning styles. Me, I did like a virtual school. So I was the kid at the table for say my mom said, you can't get up because I can't focus. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm bouncing
Hmm.
off the walls. My sister was
Yeah.
the one that would sit down, bang, 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 get her stuff done. Do you find it different with the way your kids learn, or do they all kind of fall into the same category?
Yeah, there's definitely unique aspects to each of our kids and the ways that they learn best, the kind of tactics, tools, rhythms that we use for them. My oldest son, my 10-year-old, he's very motivated to get his school done because he's ready to move on to other things. And so we can lay out his work. My wife does most of this. She'll, prep kind of their day and leave it out on the table for them. And when he gets up in the morning, he'll knock out like half his school.
Wow.
He's an early riser, and so he'll have half of his school knocked out before we ever come downstairs.
That's all.
Whereas like yeah, but like with my oldest daughter, my 11-year-old, she's wired a lot more like me, and she's more of like the comfort seeking, just slow moving, never really in a rush. And she's the one where we're having like, all right, you got to go, babe. Like you got to get things going, and we can't just kind of roll into all of this all day, or you're not going to be done until 10 o'clock tonight. And so there's different things that we've introduced for them and for our other kids too that work best for them. We have a small homestead on our land here too, so we've got chickens, ducks, goats, and like
Nice.
being able to just get outside is a huge one for us. So my wife will just go throw a blanket out in the yard, and it'll be hilarious to like walk out there and there's just chickens running around and they're just sitting in the middle of the yard, reading or doing their math or something like that. But even just that change of scenery, the ability to kind of go run around outside and move their body while they're doing their school is really helpful, especially for my boys who are 10, 9, and 7. Being able to just, yeah, not be confined somewhere, to move around, to kind of like have that aspect to their education is really helpful for them.
No, without a doubt. And I remember because my mom would kind of do the same thing where we live in South Florida, so it's good
Hmm.
weather most of the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom is the one that you'll find like I've gotten pictures from my friends at a random park, and my mom's just hugging a tree.
Yeah.
So like it's like that explains how she is. But
Yeah.
I do know too, like we grew up kind of like in the woods of Florida. We
Hmm.
would take our four-wheeler out to a canal and we would just post up and do our schoolwork
Yeah.
outside. And it
Hmm.
would be we'd have our fishing poles, you know what I mean? And it would
Yeah.
I felt like I would actually learn more and actually be more there present when I'm doing it
Hmm.
compared to when I was sitting at the kitchen table just
Yeah.
daydreaming,
100%.
looking out the window, thinking, "Hey, I want to go run outside."
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and that's something that I love about homeschooling too, because like I personally believe that we should be outside more than we are.
Hmm.
And as a kid, I think when they're in school, they're confined. They got all these other kids doing it. Being out there allows them actually to be in tune with the world, in tune in like God's creation, allow them to
Yeah.
immerse themselves, get back into it. Um, Now when it comes to like a structured routine, when it comes to your
Hmm.
homeschooling journey, do you guys have like a set, hey, we start this time, we end this time? Do you guys just kind of let it go?
Yeah, typically, so we do keep some level of structure with that. And again, it's one of those things that just we have found that works better for our family.
Hmm.
Um, and that may just be because of our kids' wirings or because we're a bigger family. If we don't have that structure, things can feel very chaotic to the point where everybody is having a really hard time. So, structure is a really helpful tool in our
Hmm.
house within reason. And so there is like a process that we follow. My wife will typically kind of start off with like a morning basket that's geared more towards like creative outlets or reading poetry, looking at art, something to just kind of ease into the day to set the tone for like the educational process that's coming later in the day, some of the stricter topics or subjects that they'll learn. And so that typically starts around 9 o'clock or so, and that usually involves everybody, all 6 kids. And then we'll go throughout different routines throughout the rest of the day, depending on the day, to get into some of the rest of the topics, subjects with each of the kids. So she has dedicated time and subjects that she works with each kid, and then kind of rotates them through while the others do independent work.
I love it, dude. I love it. And I gotta imagine with six, you gotta have some kind of structure to keep it
Yeah,
going. There's no
yeah,
way we can just let everyone run wild.
yeah.
When it comes to the 3 mile per hour fatherhood, do you
Hmm.
mind just giving us a background on kind of the mission you got going on there and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the short version is back in 2020, I would say our life changed pretty significantly just in terms of our philosophy on how we operate. At the beginning of 2020, we just had our fifth child, and she was a surprise. And so we were reeling a bit of trying to figure out like what is this going to look like. My wife was still working at our church at the time. I was working full time, and we're trying to figure out like how do we operate in a way that is going to allow us to really carry out the vision that we have for our family. And I mentioned earlier a big part of our vision, especially with the homeschool piece, was to be able to be very present with our kids during these very formative years with them. And what we found is that we were just missing out on a lot of things. A lot of our time, attention, energy was going to other things, good things, leadership roles within our church or our community. We were leading a house church at the time, so heavily investing in other people. But what we found was that we were feeling just consistently worn out by our life, by the amount that we were pouring out, and that our kids were just not getting the best of us. Like they were getting the leftovers, the scraps. And so it kind of forced us into a season of reassessing our life and trying to determine like what does it look like to live in a really healthy way where we have the time, the energy, the attention to give to the things that matter the most in our life in this season. And so throughout 2020, we really intentionally pressed into rhythms of slowing down. I'd read a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, which is probably like my all-time favorite book now. It radically changed my life. And so throughout that year, we really pressed into these ways of slowing down of how do we set a pace for our life, for our family that matches where we are, that doesn't make us feel like we have to say yes to everything that comes our way, and that allows us again just to be present to our kids, to each other, to our home, to the people that matter most, to the things that we feel most called to in our life, homeschool being a big piece of that. And so in that, a few different things were kind of born of that season, I'll say. My wife ended up stepping away from her job and she started a homeschool co op the following year with a couple friends that's still going today. And then shortly after that, I started writing on LinkedIn primarily about, started off about leadership, but then kind of slowly evolved into a focus on fatherhood, and found that a lot of the things that I was learning in my life as I was sharing them were really resonating with other dads, and really seeing that dads were struggling to figure out how do I manage the demands of family, of work, of fatherhood, of life, and stay present to those things. How do I not get kind of wrapped up in the swirl and the whirlwind of life and just feel like I'm missing everything? And that was probably the end of 2021, 2022, I think. And really have just ever since been committed to creating content, writing on LinkedIn. I've done a few other things like coaching cohorts and things of that nature, but all geared towards really helping dads to find their vision for fatherhood, to really set the pace for their life, to find margin in their life, and to create habits that are going to help them to slow down and be present.
Man, I love that. And also, I personally believe there's not a more important leadership role than being a dad.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
so like I feel like you were already touching on leadership. It kind of
Yeah.
transitions nicely.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're seeing? I know you said that they're getting lost maybe in that swirl of the world and kind of getting lost,
Hmm.
and they got to manage their job. They got to manage all their
Hmm.
responsibilities and stuff. What are some things you're seeing that when you're talking with them are resonating and allowing them to actually slow down and make that commitment to being there and being present with their kids?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've really tried to press into more lately in some of my content and coaching has been a focus on emotional regulation. I can nerd out about this for a long time, so I'll try to keep it short for the purposes of our conversation. But I think this is especially true, I believe, for homeschool families, and especially if there are any dads listening that work from home and have a homeschool family. That's how I am. I'm in my closet right now. That's where my office is, my cloffice, as my kids call it. 'Cause it's the only place to post up when you got six kids at home. But so all eight of us are home most days, so I'm around my kids. I hear the chaos of
Uh-huh.
family life going on. I've got a demanding job, and one of the things that I learned several years ago about this concept of emotional regulation is how quickly we can get dysregulated if we're not intentional, if we're not paying attention to these kinds of things. And when I say dysregulated, there's kind of two modes to that. One is what I would call like the blue zone. It's called hypoarousal. It's where you're just kind of numbed out. So imagine like dad, end of a long day of work, just wants to kind of disconnect, maybe scroll his phone on social media, pour a drink of, bourbon or beer, whatever, and they just kind of want to separate, disconnect, right? And when you're in that place, you're not present to your kids. You're not present to the needs of your spouse or your wife or the things going on in your home. You're just disconnected, numbed out. The other side of that is hyper arousal. I call it the red zone. It's where you're just feeling like overwhelmed. You're anxious, maybe tight chest, tight jaw, feeling angry. This could be, you get done with a long day of work, you go downstairs. It's kind of that 5 to 7 hour where kids are hungry and tired and things have just kind of fallen off the rails and everybody's screaming and yelling and they want food and you just kind of like, oh, I can't take this, right? And you just feel overwhelmed, and maybe that's the point where you're yelling or you're shouting at everybody, just like to be quiet, because you just need space to think or for things to calm down. And again, in that place, you're not able to be present there either to like what's actually going on, to what your wife needs in that moment from you, what your kids need from you in that moment. You cannot be present when you are dysregulated. And I think that's such an important thing because it's a skill. Like everybody gets dysregulated. That's just being human. The goal is not to avoid those things completely. It's impossible. But I think it's a skill you can develop to be able to stay in a regulated zone for longer, to set yourself up to where you can recognize when you're moving into one of these phases of dysregulation and use certain skills or certain tools to get yourself back in a healthy way. And I think that's something that resonates with dads, because it's it's actionable, it's practical, it's something that it's a framework that they can understand and not feel like I'm this broken dad who's just angry with my kids all the time. So there's nothing wrong with you. Like you're just being a human. But the reality is like you may just be missing some tools in the toolbox for how to regulate your emotions, regulate your body, and be able to connect with your kids in like deep, meaningful ways. And so that's been my latest focus. It seems to have resonated a lot, and I really enjoy getting to talk to dads about that.
Yeah, so with that, so what are some of the things maybe if you feel open to sharing them, but like
Yeah.
I know from just running this nonprofit, my business, we work on a marine service business and then dealing with everything in life, I'll sometimes get to that tight chest, tight jaw, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden now I'm there. What are some things you can do to when you catch yourself going that way
Mhm.
that you can kind of bring yourself back before it gets too far gone, before you're lost in thought and you're just,
Yeah.
like you said, angry with everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it. One of the exercises that I've had dads do in the one-on-one and group coaching that I've done is um, being able to identify like the what I call like the check engine lights. So, like your dashboard in your car, the check engine light comes on. Typically, that light is indicative that something is wrong in your car, in your engine somewhere, and it's telling you something needs your attention here. And if you ignore that light for too long, it's not going to go away. It's whatever the problem is going to get worse potentially. What could be a simple fix now has become a much bigger, more costly fix because you've ignored this sign that something's not right. And I think it's the same thing like with our emotional state, our regulation, is that when we start to recognize those check engine lights, those warning signs that, hey, something's not right here, something's going on under the surface. It could be that tight chest, it could be your heart racing. For me personally, it's my jaw. I have a habit of kind of clicking my jaw, and I know when that happens, like that is a sign that something's bothering me. And if we can, the earlier we can recognize it, if you think of uh, your regulation existing on a spectrum from like 1 to 10, and we'll call like 4 to 7 the green zone of regulation. Some people call it window of tolerance. There's a few different names for it. But like if you can catch yourself going from a 7 to an 8, it's a lot easier to take action on that and come back down into the green zone than if you let yourself get up to a 10. Or some dads I've worked with, they're like, I feel like I'm at a 12. They're beyond the spectrum at that point, which we've all felt that way. And so I think there's a lot of different tools and techniques for regulation. Just in the same way we talked about with homeschooling, of finding the right philosophy, the right process, the right rhythms for you and your family in that season. I think the same thing can be said for dads and for moms. This is applicable for moms as well. Uh, like to find the rhythms and the tools that work best for you. For me, it's like getting outside. We talked about it earlier. There's just something good for the soul to be outside, to look up at the sky, to just kind of recognize that this thing that's got you worked up is really not a big deal. For a lot of dads that I talk to, exercise is a big one. If they're feeling that, there's like, I just need to go lift some weights, or go for a run, go for a walk. Could be something as practical as like grabbing an ice pack out of the freezer and just holding it on your chest. There's something about like that cold on your chest that helps regulate your breathing. And breathing's another big one that you can use to calm down. And it really just depends on the situation and kind of what the situation demands too. That's why I like to really encourage dads to have a few of these tools in your tool belt. Like for me, in certain moments with my kids, it's not always like if there's a really hard moment with my kids where my son is losing his cool and he's yelling, he's shouting, he's screaming. I can't just tell my wife like, "Hey, I'm gonna just go work out real quick. I'm gonna go for a run, and then I'll come back and deal with this." Like that's just the situation demands something different.
Yes,
And
sir.
so, but at the very least, I can sit him down and I can say, "I need you to stay here. I need to go walk upstairs for a second." And I'll just walk upstairs, take a few deep breaths, or go grab an ice pack, or just step outside for a second and calm down. And I don't do this perfectly. I don't want to give any impression that I've got it all figured out. I fail at this a lot, but like in that moment, if you can just step away and take a couple deep breaths, it does wonders for your ability to be present in that moment and to really address like the core heart level issue with your kid rather than just like shouting at them for doing whatever they did. So, there's a lot of different things I think you can do. And it's just, again, finding what's right for you in this season for the situation.
No, I love that. Now you're talking a lot about connecting with your kids. Um, can you just kind of touch on maybe what that looks like if a dad's listening and
Yeah.
he probably thinks, well, I'm connecting with them, but just kind of like the deeper meaning to that connection where you're getting at rather than
Yeah.
that surface level?
Yeah, absolutely. So the definition that I give for like being present, because that's a bit of a buzzword too, where you just like you hear it and you're like, well, I want to be present. I don't always know what that means. Like I'm here with them. Is that enough? Do I need to be spending one-on-one time every day with all of my kids? Yeah, especially for families with larger families, lots of kids, getting that one-on-one time a lot is just not always feasible.
Hmm.
And so the way that I think about being present, being connected with your kids, there's kind of two components to it. One is what I call like rooted intention. So it's having like a clear vision of who you want to be as a dad, or a mom, and like a clear vision for your family, for your relationship with your kids. Like, who do you want to be to them? It's like the exercise that I give a lot, or encourage dads to do with this one is, you imagine you're at the end of your life and you've lived a long, good, full life and you've passed away. And now your kid is going to stand up in front of a room full of people and give their eulogy for you at your funeral. What would you want them to say about you? Like, what's the impact that you had on their life? What words would you want them to use to describe you? That's all I mean when I talk about vision. It's just like imagining who you're going to be one day, what impact you will have had. And if that's in place and you have the intention of becoming that type of dad, then you have these moments every day with your kids to bring that vision into reality. You have these opportunities in any given moment to be the type of dad that you want to be. So that's part one, is the rooted intention. And then the second piece is what I call like unhurried attention. And that's where the slowing down piece comes in. Like if you're just frantically on the move all the time, your schedule's so full that you're just not ever able to like lock eyes with your kid. You're just always going from one thing to the next, always looking at what's coming up. You just like you can't be present, you can't connect when you're in a rush. Like that's what is a big thing for me, is like I cannot be the type of dad I want to be when I'm in a hurry. And so being able to craft my life in such a way where I have the margin to be available to my kids, to pay attention to them, to notice what's going on, is a really important thing for me. And it's something that I really encourage in other dads as well. And so I think if you have those two things, you have the rooted intention, you know who you want to be, and you're using the opportunities that present themselves every day. And you have like the unhurried attention to your kids, that's when you have opportunity for connection. It's like, for example, maybe to like apply it in a practical situation. I'm right now, my oldest daughter, she's playing flag football. They announced an all girls flag football league at the YMCA here, and it was one of the things I really wanted to encourage her to do. Part of the paying attention to them, having the vision. She's never played organized sports, but she's fairly athletic and has done a good job when we've thrown the football in the backyard. And so it was one of the things I really encouraged her to do. She kind of stepped out into it with boldness, and it's been really cool to see. I'm coaching her, and so it's been a really cool point of connection for us. So we're driving home last night from practice, and we're driving by the Chick-fil-A that's like 5 minutes from our house. And she's like, "Dad, can we get Chick-fil-A?" I'm like, "No, we're not gonna get Chick-fil-A. Like, Mom's got dinner at home." And she's like, "What if we just get French fries?" And it was like this moment for me where I'm like, man, like I want to be the type of dad that when my daughter looks back on growing up in my house with me, that she's like, man, my dad was the type of dad that would give me Chick-fil-A French fries. That would like do special things for
Yep.
me. And so I was like, let's do it. And so, I pulled in, spent $6 to get her a large fry and a large fry to bring home to my wife because I was like, she'd been holding it down with the other five. I was like, she'll probably appreciate getting some French fries coming home. And, it was just like, it was $6. It was not a big deal. It took 5 extra minutes, but we had time for it. I had the vision of like who I want my daughter to remember me to be. And I was like, let's get Chick-fil-A French fries. That doesn't mean I'm gonna get them every time I drive by Chick-fil-A, but in that moment, it was like clear to me this is an opportunity for me to become the type of dad I want to be. And
Mhm.
that's like what connection I think looks like.
No, I love that too. And even for her, that little thing you did right there, that is for a kid, it means so much at the end of the day
Yeah.
too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it goes so much further. Now you mentioned a book. If you could repeat it one more time for the people listening, but if you have
Yeah.
any other ones too that maybe to kind of get them going under this framework or any
Yeah.
suggestions, go ahead and feel free to share them with us.
Yeah, absolutely. The book that I mentioned is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's by a guy named John Mark Comer. He's a pastor and author out on the West Coast. He was up in Portland. I think he's in LA now. But he's written several books. But this one in particular, to me, is just the thing. Like if you hear any of this, you're like, man, I want to slow down. I want my life to be more intentional. I feel like I'm just stuck on this hamster wheel or this treadmill of life where I'm working really hard and I'm always on the go, but I'm never actually going anywhere. I think that's the best resource out there. It kind of creates the framework for how the damage that hurry does to our bodies, to our souls, and how much it distracts us from the things that are going on in our life. And would highly, highly recommend it for anybody that this conversation resonates with, and you want some like practical tools to get started. That's reading that and applying several of the things that he talked about there, whether it's practicing a Sabbath, a day of rest in your home, if it's going more to like minimal lifestyle where you're not spending as much of your time and energy on stuff, just practicing rhythms of silence, being able to like sit in the quiet and stillness. Those types of things I think are really significant, have a really significant impact on your ability to be present, to connect with your wife, your kids, the people that are important to you.
Now, with you having three boys and three girls, I would imagine that connecting with the sons maybe looks a little different than
Hmm.
connecting with the girl.
Yeah. Hmm.
So if a dad's listening right now and they got maybe the same as you, they have both sides, a girl and a boy.
Hmm.
Is there any practical advice that you can give to them when it comes to connecting with the different genders?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is, so I've seen it Definitely in my boys and my girls. And there are unique personalities within each of them as well
Hmm.
that I try to take into account. But in general, I would say the framework that I use is for my daughters, they want the face-to-face time, right? Like I can sit down with my girls over a cup of tea or a snack or whatever at the table, and they'll just talk, right? Especially my two young, my 5-year-old and my 4-year-old, they will talk nonstop. My 11-year-old, same thing. Like she'll just, her and I can just kind of sit together. Her and I are very very similar. She's the kid that's most like me. So like when we drive to flag football practice last night, like we just turn on. She loves Forrest Frank right now, and so we just turn on Forrest Frank and listen. And like I'll ask her a question or two, but I don't feel like I need to push it with her. I'm just like us just sitting together listening to music that we like is there's like this bonding thing with us there, but it's still kind of that same kind of face to face mentality where we're just together, we're doing the thing. With my boys, it's more of like the shoulder to shoulder. Like if I take my boys and just try to sit and talk to them, they just get kind of stir crazy and they're ready to like go do something. They'll give me quick kind of one word answers if I ask them questions. But if we go in the backyard and throw the football, like that is immediate connection point for all of them. Like if I say, I'm going to go outside with the football, that all three of them will come out and we'll just run routes. They'll play, 2-on-1, and again, that's a generalization that's kind of broad, the face to face versus shoulder to shoulder, but certainly see it be true for the most part with my kids, with my boys and girls.
Now, kind of going back to your homeschooling journey, are you guys planning to homeschool them all the way throughout?
Right now, we are. That's the plan. Again, we kind of reassess year by year to make sure that we feel good about what we're doing, the call that we have in our life with our kids. Our plan right now is to homeschool all the way through high school. That could change, but our hope is to be able to do that.
No, and that's honestly the best way to do. That's the exact way my parents did it. It's when you put that long-term commitment on it, it makes it a
Hmm.
little bit more difficult than just saying, "Hey, do we want to do this for another year?"
Right. Yep.
Makes it that
Exactly.
little bit more easy. Now, kind of taking a transition over to your wife. You have 6 kids. I got to imagine you feel kind of stretched into making sure they all get their time. Sometimes
Hmm.
people fall into that pattern of their significant other getting pushed to the side
Hmm.
in order to kind of focus on the kids. Do you take that same philosophy when it comes to being present with her as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And again, with the seasons as they've gone with our kids and the ages, this has looked different. But
Hmm.
we've really fought for prioritizing both our own health and the things that we need individually as well as collectively within our marriage. So, for example, I'm highly introverted, which is a weird thing to say with 6 kids, but like I need time to myself to like refresh, recharge. And so for me, I really like going to a coffee shop on the weekends. That's like my place. We have a nature preserve about 5 minutes from our house, so sometimes I'll go walk around up there. But getting a good coffee, sitting in a coffee shop, listening to music, journaling, reading, whatever, like that's the thing that recharges me. And so my wife really fights for that time on the weekends to prioritize, like giving me a chance to go and do that for an hour or two. Nothing huge. For her, it's my wife is in the season that she loves thrift shopping. And so for her, it's like, on Thursdays she goes out. I hold it down with the kids through dinner and bedtime so
Mm.
that she can go out and just pop to her favorite thrift stores and just again unhurried kind of walk through, get to look at everything, not have a bunch of kids there that are wanting her to look at other stuff or are ready to go, that she can just kind of be there and maybe listen to a podcast while she's doing it, whatever she wants to do. And so we really fight for those with each other to have the rhythms that allow us to be healthy. Um, and then for each other too, for the longest time we did date night swaps with some friends of ours. I think this is like one of the my biggest recommendations to families with young kids is to find a family similar to y'all in terms of kids, ages, things like that, and just switch off every week doing date nights. So Wednesday nights, Tuesday, whatever night works for y'all, and one week one of them comes over and sits with your kids after bedtime, and you and your wife get to go out for a date, and then the next week you flip and you go over there while their kids are asleep. We did that for years with some friends of ours, and it was great. It was like the accountability of ensuring that we got a date night every other week. On weeks where it was our turn to watch their kids, I would just go sit at their house while their kids were asleep, and it was a good like introverted refilling time for me to sit in a quiet house and again to work on stuff, to read, to watch football, like whatever the thing was that I needed at that time. um, we've now entered into a season where my oldest is old enough to watch and babysit our other kids, which is life changing. Never thought this day would come, but now she can watch our other kids, like on Saturday during the day. We can go out for a date during while the sun is still up and while we have energy still to have like a full blown conversation. So again, we really try to prioritize that as much as we can, finding again just what works for us in this season right now, what's practical, and ensuring that we're prioritizing those things and that other opportunities that come up, other commitments, like we prioritize those, right? If we get invited to something or there's an opportunity to say yes to something, but we know it's going to prevent us from these kind of key anchor rhythms of our life, it's just a no. Like we know we have to prioritize these anchor rhythms to ensure that we're healthy, our marriage is healthy, our kids are healthy, our family's healthy, and that's just where we want to be.
No, that's something that my dad, because I'll like talk with him now, like when we were working out, and when I talked about our homeschooling journey and kind of like the things going down, he said you have to be like confident in saying no and understand that
Hmm.
like that no is actually your freedom. Like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
and it's
Yep.
just when you said it to it, it makes sense because you feel sometimes maybe obligated to go do
Yeah.
something, but you don't recognize that the stress is going to put on or that little bit of hiccup in your routine,
Hmm.
the damage it's actually going to cause. And he said he was like, just
Yeah.
be completely comfortable saying no. My dad's not one to really care about people's
Hmm.
feelings. That's where
Yeah.
my mom's side comes in. And
Yeah.
that was one of his biggest like advices when I was asking. He's like, you just gotta be
Hmm.
comfortable saying no. You don't gotta
Yep.
explain yourself for why you're saying no. You just say no and understand that
Yeah.
you're prioritizing your family, your guys' like connection more than anything
Hmm.
else.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's so much like cultural pressure right now to say yes to everything,
Mhm.
and being able to make no your default response to stuff unless it's aligned with your vision of who you want to be in the season of your life, I think is massive, right? There's a phrase, it's every yes is a thousand no's, right? For every yes you say to something, you're saying no to a thousand other things. And like it's really easy for one of those thousand no's to be your kids or to be your family or to be the thing that's going to allow you to be healthy. And we justify it and say, well, it's just this one time. It's just, it'll be okay if we miss our date night this week. Like we'll pick it back up next week. And then it kind of stacks. And so being able to give very intentional, purposeful yeses and not feel like it has to be that because that's just the right thing to do. I feel this way about youth sports big time. It's like a huge thing for me. I played sports all growing up. My kids are all playing sports now. But there was a season where it's just like this, everybody else is doing it, everybody else is saying yes. It was just not the right yes for us. It was going to demand too much of our family. And so being like the oddballs that had kids not doing any extracurriculars was a hard thing for us, but ultimately it was what was best. And now we're into a new season where we say yes, and our kids are playing football and basketball and within reason again, like making sure that we're saying yes to the right thing. So I think like your dad's spot on with that one.
No, most definitely. Now, before we hop off here, is there maybe anything that you want to highlight where they can find you?
Hmm.
I don't know. You said you're on LinkedIn a lot. Is there anything that you got like a newsletter or anything?
Yeah, yeah.
Listen to?
I'm in the process right now of re-envisioning and revamping some of the things that I want to do with 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood. I've taken a lot of this year off from any kind of formal coaching or offering or anything like that, but I still write most days content on LinkedIn. So that
Okay.
would be the best place to find me and follow along. I try to make my content there very applicable and very actionable. I very much do not like the aspect of social media that feels like entertainment.
Mm.
I like a phrase I heard recently, like I'd rather feed 25 people than entertain 100. And so I really try to make my content very practical, very applicable, something that you can read and feel encouraged by, or give you like something to grab onto and apply to your own kind of fatherhood journey. And so I'd say that's the place right now that's best to connect. I'm also, people can reach out directly to me. You're welcome to share like my email and contact information as part of this. And it's one of the things that my wife and I have dreamed about in a different season when we don't have 6 young kids, of being able to like be a resource for homeschool families, and we still can do that, of being able to talk through kind of the different practical applications of how do you get started, how do you overcome some of the fears, the concerns, how do you navigate some of the social stigmas and misconceptions about homeschool, being afraid that your kid's going to be like this socially awkward weirdo for their entire life. These are just like the real things that people wrestle with when they're trying to figure out if homeschool is the right thing for them. And so just love to be a resource there too. If there's anybody that hears any of this and wants to talk more about what that looks like, would welcome them to reach out, either email, you can DM me on LinkedIn, anything like that. Would be happy to talk through anything.
All right, man. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I've learned a lot. Before we hop off, Miss Beth, do you have anything for him? I know I've kind of not let you talk this time.
No, that's fine. No, that was great. I was tearing up halfway through. That was really just
Yeah.
what I needed to hear because I am in a different phase of life. I graduated from college. Now I'm working for David, and that was especially the no part. That was I feel a little called out by that, but it's good. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. It's great. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think the thing with that, like my go-to encouragement for anybody in this type of thing is to start where you are, not where you think you should be. Like
Mm,
the goal
yeah.
here isn't to just eliminate everything from your life that's not
Mhm.
necessary, or to
Mhm.
start homeschooling tomorrow in the perfect way. Like
Mhm.
if you're just starting this journey, if you're just starting to think about this journey, don't feel like you've got to have everything figured out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to assess every aspect of your life and start saying no to everything. Like pick
Mhm.
one thing, make one small step. Like start where you are. Like we said at the beginning, give yourself grace to figure this out. Like you're not in a hurry to get anywhere. There's time to figure these things out, and there's resources out there like what y'all are doing. Um,
Yeah.
I love to hear the ways that y'all are just kind of meeting families where they're at and being a resource to walk alongside them, because it can be a scary thing. It's a big jump to make. It's a big commitment. Again, a lot of worries, concerns, misconceptions, things out there. So I love the work that y'all are doing. If there's anything I can do to just be a resource or a support for y'all in the work that you're doing, please let me know.
Man, I appreciate that. Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
we both were homeschooled our whole life, and I think that like you said, I saw my parents battling it, and then now kind of moving into the phase where my brother and sisters are having kids. I'm
Yeah.
planning on having kids here shortly. If we can kind of just unite that homeschooling,
Hmm.
the families, and give each other that support that I saw my parents were missing. And
Hmm.
also, I feel like we all get to talking to each other. You may find things that someone else is doing that works for you, but you also can go through that phase of like they're saying this
Yeah.
works, but you can say, hey, you know what? I'm
Yep.
not going to try that. That's not for me. So
Hmm.
we're just trying to connect with as many people as possible. And again,
I
dude,
love
thank
it.
you for coming on, man. We're gonna go ahead. What we do is we write a resource from the interview, and then as well as a blog.
Okay.
Um,
Sweet.
I'll have Miss Beth when she gets them typed up, send them over to you. If there's anything that you want to add or anything maybe we missed out on it, feel free to critique and say,
Yeah.
hey,
Okay.
put this in there. You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks
Awesome.
again, dude, man.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate y'all. It's great to meet you. And like I
You
said, if
too.
there's anything I can do to support the mission that y'all are going after, I'm here for it. So just let me know.
Heck yeah, man.
Thank
We'll
All
you.
right.
up on
Take
it.
care, y'all. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.